The Great Depression lasted from 1929 until 1939. It was the deepest and longest-lasting economic downturn in Western industrialized history. On Black Thursday, October 24, 1929, the stock market crashed. At this point in the Depression, the supply was much greater than demand, and therefore investors sold their shares and stocks in mass quantities. On Black Thursday, 12.9 million shares were traded, which was a new record. 5 days later, 16 million shares were traded in a day. Millions of shares were now worth nothing, and therefore investors who bought stocks with borrowed money went bankrupt. Consumer confidence. Consumer confidence is how confident a customer is on the immediate, future, or near of an economy. It usually regards personal finance. As consumer confidence diminished, lack of spending and investment led to businesses slowing in their production. This led to the laying off of workers. This led to wages falling, and many Canadians were forced to buy on credit. Richard Bennett was the Prime Minister of Canada during the Great Depression. He was the Prime Minister from August 7, 1930 to October 23, 1935. During this depression, it was the hardest on Newfoundland and Labrador. Countries were less inclined to trade, and Canada's revenue plummeted, causing a revenue freefall. Soon came widespread unemployment, which increased the struggle during an already difficult situation. This caused the government to spend money in the form of subsidies for relief programs. Plus, all funds for healthcare, education, and other social programs were cut in half. The government borrowed more money from abroad. However, because of the ever-dwindling Canadian economic presence from a global standpoint, the foreign investors began normal and ended up quite scarce. During the Great Depression, economists realized the old mechanisms which had always regulated the economy no longer worked, and they decided that they needed to be transformed. In the beginning of the Great Depression, the economic theory that they were using was classical. And the economic depression that happened was caused from excessive savings and the major decrease in demand. In a normal economy, there is a cycle and flow that includes high employment rates, money being spent, and wages being good. But when people sense oncoming hardship, they question their spendings and think more of saving. So what's the cure? Well, when economists realized that the laissez-faire government they had been using was extremely inadequate, they decided that they needed to change it, and they replaced it with the Keynesian theory. Well, what is Keynesian theory? The theory implements increase in government expenditures and decreases taxes. This theory that was developed and proposed was created by Mr. John Maynard Keynes in the 30s. All of this lowered America's adherence to the gold standard. The gold standard is a value of a currency, whether it be dollars, yen, or whatever country it may be from. This is in terms of gold. Because of that, the Great Depression spread to Canada and other parts of the world. Because of this, Canada's income, at least 63.2% of it, became interest payments and credit purchases. So we've thrown a lot of information at you guys. So here's an example to help clear things up. Say we have two people. In an economy, there is a circular flow of money. Here's Sally and John. Suppose something disrupts the consumer confidence. Say Apple goes bankrupt. Sally will save her money and brace her finances for a recession, although because her spending is part of John's income, her decisions make things worse for John, and in turn, for herself too. This creates a cycle, and this cycle has a name. It's called a liquidity trap. When this happens, people refuse to spend money no matter how much the government increases the money supply. The government lowers taxes to try to break the cycle, and because of this, Sally and John don't have to pay as much for taxes, which leaves them with more disposable income. This means that they don't have to save as much, and in return, it makes it easier for both of them to purchase goods and services.